I'm Mia. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. Recently, my boyfriend Tom, who had been on an overseas assignment for a long time, returned to the United States. During our nearly 10 years of long-distance relationship, we faced several crises of breaking up, but each time, we talked it out and overcame them. Although my dream of getting married in my 20s didn't come true, I realized that age doesn't matter as long as I have him. I was content. We should soon pay a visit to both of our parents. Whose house shall we visit first, Mia's or mine? Tom asked me this during our date, and I found myself at a loss for words. Well. As I hesitated, he looked puzzled. Hey, you're not going to say you don't want to marry now, are you? I've finally managed to return to the United States. No, it's not that, it's just. I'm happy that Tom has come back, but. The reason I added but was because the image of Tom's mother popped into my mind. The thought of marrying Tom and having his mother come with the package cast a dark shadow over the idea of our marriage. I first met Tom's mother, Mrs. Jane, 10 years ago. I was 25 at the time. I unexpectedly bumped into Mrs. Jane during a date with Tom, my colleague at the time. Tom, what are you doing here? Oh, are you on a date? Nice to meet you. I'm Jane, Tom's mother. Mrs. Jane was 47 at the time. I was surprised when I first saw her. That's because she looked incredibly youthful and beautiful for someone in her mid-40s. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Mia, dating Tom. Mrs. Jane looked me up and down thoroughly. It was clearly a judgmental gaze assessing another woman's level. My feeling wasn't just paranoia. Because as soon as Tom stepped away to the restroom, Mrs. Jane said, I knew Tom had a girlfriend, but I thought she would be cuter. I didn't know Tom wasn't picky about looks. Mrs. Jane smirked maliciously as she said it. Not just the face, but the body type too, right? Let's say, curvy. Or in worse terms, fat. Oh dear, I shouldn't say such things, should I? She clearly didn't feel sorry at all. Sure, I'm on the caveat side, but what a thing to say to someone you've just met. Just as I was about to retort, Tom came back from the restroom. Oh, welcome back. I was just having a nice chat with Mia. We've become so close, right, Mia? The moment Tom returned, Mrs. Jane swiftly switched back to the mask of a good mother, smiling sweetly at me. Wow, what a drastic change. I was astounded. After leaving the cafe, I asked Tom. So, what's your mother like? She's quite beautiful, isn't she? Oh yes, she was quite the beauty in her hometown, even crowned as Miss Something or Other in her younger days. That's why she still takes great care of her beauty, I suppose. She doesn't look too bad for her age, does she? Indeed, she might not look bad. She appeared about 15 years younger than her actual age. But her heart was the worst. However, I couldn't bring myself to say such things to Tom, who seemed a bit proud of his beautiful mother. But then I thought, if I marry Tom, she'll become my mother-in-law. Honestly, that thought filled me with apprehension at the time. Then came the 10 years. Soon after, Tom was assigned to work in New York. He left for New York, and naturally, our wedding plans were put on hold. I hadn't seen Mrs. Jane for all that time. Yet. Hey, are you still feeling unsure about marrying me? Lost in my thoughts, Tom's voice brought me back to reality. I guess so. Your father might be worried about you marrying someone like me. Oops, I need to be careful. I got caught up in unpleasant memories from the past. It seems I've unintentionally given Tom the wrong impression. It's nothing like that. I'm just experiencing a bit of pre-wedding jitters. Don't worry, I'm definitely up for getting married. I said to Tom, trying to sound cheerful. No matter what kind of person the future mother-in-law is, I'm not marrying her after all. And it's been 10 years, surely she must have mellowed a bit by now. I tried to reassure myself. But that was nothing more than a fleeting hope. The following month, on the weekend, I was heading to Tom's house. Not for a marriage proposal visit, but just to pick up something he forgot. Tom, of all things, forgot the movie tickets for our cinema date at home. We lost the chance for a leisurely lunch, but it was fine. We'll just enjoy hot dogs and popcorn while watching the movie. We should just make it in time. Wait here for a sec. I'll be right back with them. As soon as we arrived at his house, Tom said this and hurriedly went upstairs. So noisy. Tom? Are you back? You are. Hearing Tom's voice, Mrs. Jane appeared at the entrance. Hi, hello. I greeted her, and Mrs. Jane suddenly burst into laughter. Oh my. It's that girl from 10 years ago. The chubby piggy. Chubby pig, she must be referring to me. Oh my, still together? Tom really has unique tastes, doesn't he? I never thought he'd still be with the same girl after all this time. Why doesn't he switch to a younger woman? She said, with a faint smirk on her face. I couldn't believe my ears at Mrs. Jane's words. Huh? Of course, right? Tom's an elite who returned from New York. There must be plenty of women aiming for him. You might have slimmed down a bit in the last 10 years, but, on the flip side, there's been some decline, hasn't there? If you were in your 20s a decade ago, that makes you in your 30s now, right? Oh my, you're practically an old lady now. If I've aged over the last 10 years, then Mrs. Jane must have aged too, right? But when I thought about it, Mrs. Jane looked exactly the same as she did 10 years ago. So much so, I wondered if she was not just a beautiful witch, but a real witch. Hey, Mia, right? If you had any common sense, you'd step back yourself, don't you think? Ask yourself if you're truly worthy of Tom, deep in your heart. Just then, Tom came bounding down the stairs again. Sorry for the wait. Took me a while to find the tickets. Let's go. Oh, Mom, what's up? Mrs. Jane answered with a nonchalant face. It's nothing, dear. Come on, you don't want to miss the movie, don't you? Right. Let's go, Mia. Tom grabbed my arm and led me out of the house. I couldn't say anything to Mrs. Jane, and I also couldn't say anything to Tom. What would Tom think if he knew what his mother said? I didn't want to upset him. But I knew I couldn't let things continue this way. With that mother-in-law in the picture, there's no way I could be happy in marriage. But what should I do? I didn't know. Sometime later, Tom came to my house to get approval for our marriage. Of course, my parents said okay. It seemed my father had always hoped I would marry a man of his choosing. But he respected my decision, as it was the man I chose. My father made a request, but it was up to us whether to fulfill it or not. Well, I guess we've cleared Mia's house. Next is my house, next weekend. Tom said, stretching out as we left my house. Yes. At Tom's house, Mrs. Jane would be there. I would need to get her approval for our marriage. Will it be okay? As I felt anxious, Tom reassured me, it'll be fine. I'm with you, which eased my worries a bit. And then, finally, the next weekend arrived. My heart was pounding. What's up, Mia? Are you nervous? Seeing me taking deep breaths, Tom laughed. I understand. I was super nervous when I went to greet Mia's parents too. Especially since your dad is my boss. But it's okay, both my parents are easygoing. You've met my mom before, right? It's precisely because I've met Mrs. Jane before, and because it's her, that I'm so nervous. In my mind, I screamed silently. Hello, welcome. You must be Mia. Nice to meet you, I'm Tom's father. As I opened the door, Tom's father greeted me warmly. Oh, welcome. Then Mrs. Jane appeared from behind. Seeing her, I shuddered. Her makeup was too much. It was like she was ready for a party with such intense makeup. Her eyes were shimmering with glittery eyeshadow. Her outfit wasn't a party dress, but it was something one might wear to the theater. It seemed like her preparation was more about establishing dominance than welcoming me. I discreetly checked my own outfit. My clothes were fine. My stockings had no runs, and my accessories weren't too flashy. My blouse was freshly laundered without a single wrinkle. My hair was neatly styled, and I had just touched up my lipstick in the restroom at the station. Then, as Mrs. Jane passed by me, she said, "You've got lipstick on your teeth." I quickly covered my mouth in panic. But when I checked in the mirror when no one was looking, there was no lipstick on my teeth. Mrs. Jane had lied just to see me flustered. I put my compact back into my bag and stared at my phone inside for a while. I couldn't help but think that today's greeting might just determine my fate. Mrs. Jane, carrying tea on a tray, entered the living room with Tom's father. "Mom, Dad, I'd like to introduce Mia. The person I want to marry, though Mom, you've met her already." Tom broke the ice, and I greeted them. "My name is Mia. I am happy to see you." Tom's father laughed and said, "Don't be so formal. If Tom chose you, we as parents don't have much to say about it. Our son isn't perfect either and might cause you some trouble, but we're counting on you. Right, Jane?" When Tom's father turned to her, Mrs. Jane smiled in a fluster. Yes. Nice to meet you, Mia." Afterward, we had tea and chatted pleasantly. I was relieved. I had been worried Mrs. Jane would oppose the marriage, but it seemed like the greetings went smoothly. Oh my, look at the time. After some friendly conversation, Mrs. Jane looked at the clock on the wall and said, "Sorry about this, but I've been so busy today, I haven't had a chance to prepare dinner. I'll order some pizza, just wait a moment. Tom, go to the pizza place with your father and order some takeout." Really? Why go there in person? Can't we just order it over the phone? Normally, it's standard to order takeout over the phone. But you know, our usual pizza place hardly ever answers their phone. It's quicker to go there directly. And also grab some beer and wine, and pick up some snacks from the supermarket. Mrs. Jane urged Tom and her husband, almost forcing them off the sofa. Come on, hurry up or it'll get late. Enjoy your shopping trip together, just the two of you. With Mrs. Jane's insistence, Tom and his father left the house. The reason for sending them away together became clear soon enough. As soon as they were gone, Mrs. Jane dropped her kind mother facade. So it's come to this, has it? Really, such a cheeky woman. What do you mean? Mrs. Jane, lounging on the sofa with her legs crossed, said. I've always told Tom that a woman like you isn't suitable for him. You lack the decency to step back on your own. Really, with Tom's looks, he could get a much more beautiful, younger woman. Here you are, an older woman, clinging onto him before he even know what to do. Acting like once you've set your sights on your prey, you'll never let go, showing up brazenly for a marriage introduction. I had to ask. What exactly about me do you find so displeasing? Everything. Everything about you trying to take Tom from me. Just the thought of it irks me. I defended myself. But, Tom likes how I look. I know I'm not a world-class beauty, but... Mrs. Jane laughed mockingly. Think about it. If Tom has children, they'll be my grandchildren. If they're not cute, I couldn't bear to call them my grandchildren. Imagine, inheriting handsome genes and then marrying someone with a plain face, diluting the DNA. Mrs. Jane then leaned in so close I could feel her breath. Listen here. Even if you marry Tom, I'll never accept you as my daughter-in-law. I'll find a way to break you up even after the wedding. Then I'll find him a younger woman, as beautiful as me. Though finding someone as beautiful as me is hard, of course. I gripped my bag tightly that was lying beside me. So, if I leave now, would that satisfy you, Mrs. Jane? Well, yes. If you could just disappear forever, that would be wonderful. I understand. I replied. I'll do as you say. That's right, that's what you should do. And don't bother telling Tom or my husband. It's useless. I'm always the dutiful wife and kind mother. No one would believe you. Then Mrs. Jane stood up from the sofa, looking down at me, and said, Don't ever show your dirty face here again. It offends my eyes. Just then, the sound of the front door opening could be heard. We're back. Suddenly, Mrs. Jane burst into tears. What's wrong? In my confusion, Mrs. Jane turned to the two men who had just entered the living room and accused. It's awful. Mia verbally attacked me while you were gone. I don't think I can ever get along with her. Huh? I was astonished. When did I ever verbally assault Mrs. Jane? Mia said she'd rather not care for us when we get old. Even saying it would be better if we went to heaven sooner rather than later. And that she'd treat us horribly if we became senile. Oh, I can't even say it. She's scary. Mrs. Jane clung to Tom's father, playing the victim. How could you, Mia? Tom's father frowned at me. You seemed like a good person, but I can't believe you'd say such harsh things. No, that's not true. I didn't say anything like that. In fact, I was the one who was verbally abused. As I tried to defend myself, Mrs. Jane cried out in tears. Liar. Do you think I'm such a rude person? Then show some proof. That's right. I can't believe my wife would lie. Tom's father seemed completely on Mrs. Jane's side. Tom started to say something, but I stopped him. If you're talking about proof, there's no evidence that I insulted Mrs. Jane either, is there? Well, that's true. My calm rebuttal seemed to overwhelm Tom's father. If there's no evidence for either side, it just becomes a pointless argument. Unfortunately, I do have evidence on my side. What? Mrs. Jane, in utter shock, stopped her fake crying and exclaimed. It seemed she never dreamed I would have evidence. I've been recording on my phone since I arrived. Considering Mrs. Jane's previous remarks, I thought something like this might happen. I'm glad I was cautious. What do you mean by previous remarks? Tom looked surprised at my words. Proof is stronger than arguments. I took out my phone from my bag and pressed the playback button on the voice recorder. Really? Such a cheeky woman. Old woman. I'll never accept you as my daughter-in-law. Disappear forever. Don't ever show your ugly face again. Mrs. Jane's ugly tirade echoed in the living room. Stop it. Mrs. Jane lunged at me, but Tom restrained her. Mom, stop it. But, Tom, this is a mistake. Mia is trying to frame me. Mom, just stop, please. Tears welled up in Tom's eyes. Realizing the true nature of his mother must have been devastating. I sympathized with Tom, but there was no turning back now. I've been verbally abused by Mrs. Jane since I first met her 10 years ago. It's because she's beautiful and I'm just average. But no matter how beautiful someone is on the outside, I can't accept someone so ugly at heart as my mother-in-law. So, I won't marry Tom and, as you wish, I'll never come back here again. Wait, Mia. My wife was out of line. Let's talk this over again. Tom's father, flustered, apologized, but Tom had something to say. It's impossible now, Dad. It's not just about Mia. I can't accept such a woman as my mother anymore. You probably don't want to be a family with Mom or Dad anymore either. So, I've decided to follow Mia's father's request and become an adopted son-in-law in Mia's family. What? Mrs. Jane exclaimed in shock. Mia's dad is the president of the company I'm working for, Tom explained. So, Mia is not only my colleague but also the president's daughter. When I visited Mia's house to greet them, her father pleaded for me to become an adopted son-in-law. I was undecided about taking over the company, but I've just made up my mind. I will take Mia's last name and live as a member of her family. But, Tom, what about this house? Mom, do you really think I would take over this house? Do you seriously believe that? Tom was in tears. Standing beside him, Tom's father patted Tom's shoulder, saying, If it's Tom's decision, I won't say anything. I'm sorry for making you make such a sad decision. I'll make sure Mrs. Jane doesn't complain. I interjected. Yes. I would like to thank you for that, but... Huh? Tom's father looked up, puzzled. It seemed he had only heard a part of the recording earlier. Tom had listened carefully and was deeply shocked. As much as it pains me to make him listen again, the truth must be revealed. With a heavy heart, I said, Dad, you might get busier in the future. There will probably be a need for things like DNA testing. I pressed the play button on my phone again. Stop it. Stop. Stop. Don't listen to it. Mrs. Jane panicked, realizing what was about to be played. But it was too late. As Mrs. Jane's voice from the phone said, I received handsome genes and bore a good-looking child, and my child's spouse had a poor face. Wouldn't it dilute the DNA? Tom's father's face turned furious. What the? The ensuing chaos was something I'd rather not remember. Tom's father lunged at Mrs. Jane, and Tom and I desperately tried to stop him, while Mrs. Jane screamed and cried. The commotion was so intense that the neighbors called the police. Months later, Tom and I married. As he declared, Tom became an adopted son-in-law and estranged himself from his mother. However, he didn't sever ties with his father. The real parent-child relationship was denied through DNA testing, but they had lived as father and son for over 30 years. If Tom and I have children in the future, we plan to show their faces to their grandfather. Tom's father and Mrs. Jane are getting divorced. Mrs. Jane was sent back to her parents' home, where she was unwelcome and eventually cast out, and now her whereabouts are unknown. Well, knowing her, she's probably being disliked wherever she goes for constantly speaking ill of others. Mrs. Jane, who once effortlessly maintained her witchy charm in a life of luxury, might now deteriorate into a mere witch, struggling with her new hardships. That's what I think. My name is Kayla. I'm a 26-year-old preparing for a birth in my hometown. If we had a grandchild, such a daughter-in-law would be out of the picture. I overheard my mother-in-law bad-mouthing me to my husband as I was packing. She's not helpful, not pretty, doesn't bring in any money, and has no redeeming qualities. We don't need someone like that, right? No, 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 she's so annoying. That's my line. I thought to myself. I wanted to retort, but being in my final month of pregnancy, I held back. My mother-in-law has always been harsh with her words, and I knew that if I confronted her, it would only result in worse comments. For the sake of prenatal care, it was better to quickly move on and enjoy my time. So, I convinced myself and diligently continued packing. Mommy's doing her best. Please come into this world healthy and strong. Looking forward to meeting my adorable baby, I walked and talked to my belly every day while back in my hometown. My time at home was wonderfully relaxing. It was a relief to be without my mother-in-law, who had unceremoniously overstayed her welcome, criticizing everything from the taste of food to the decorating style of the baby's room. Eventually, my long-awaited baby was born safely, and the brief period of parenting at my parents' house was busy but joyful. So, I'll be back next weekend. I told my husband over the phone, but I secretly wished to stay at my parents' home a bit longer. However, I couldn't indulge forever, and I was concerned about our home. Since my husband has no interest in household chores, I wondered if the house might be in disarray. This is the home we'll raise you in, Emma. We need to get back and make it a comfortable environment. I smiled at my baby, sleeping soundly in my arms after a full meal. I'm home. John. With my hands full, I had hoped he would open the door after I rang the doorbell, but there was no response. So I struggled to unlock the door and enter the house, only to find it eerily quiet. I told him I'd be back around this time. I thought. As I headed to the living room with this thought, I was stunned by what I saw. What is this? The place was a mess, with belongings scattered everywhere. It didn't look like a neglected mess. Rather, it seemed as if someone had intentionally thrown things around haphazardly. Could this be a burglary? Frightened, I hurried out of the house. Hello, is this the police? I just got back from my hometown after giving birth, and my house is in complete chaos. As I trembled on the phone, my normally calm baby started fussing, adding to my panic. A familiar neighbor, concerned, let me rest at their house for the time being. The neighbor calmed me down as I shivered with shock and fear, and my baby fell asleep again after drinking her milk. As I was settling down, I heard the sound of police sirens and, accompanied by the neighbor, returned home. The front door was closed. I was so frightened by the state of the living room that I didn't check the other rooms. I explained to the police, who commended me for my good response. Leaving the house and waiting for the police was the safest course of action in case of a burglary, they said. I hadn't thought about the danger of encountering the burglar, but the thought alone terrified me even more. What? Why are the police here? The shrill voice echoed as the explanation to the police was wrapping up. Oh, Mom, it's terrible. The house is a mess. We think it might be a burglary, and the police are investigating. Before I could finish, I felt a sharp slap on my cheek, making my vision blur. As the neighbor and the police officers murmured, my mother-in-law, red-faced, yelled at me. "You shameless woman. How could you do this? Calling the police for a burglary. What were you thinking? Huh?" I was stunned, unable to comprehend my throbbing cheek and furious mother-in-law. The neighbor intervened, saying that calling the police was nothing to be ashamed of. And a police officer added that it was their job to investigate. But my mother-in-law wouldn't listen. "You're truly incompetent. I don't care about your birth in your hometown, or whatever. Leaving my precious John alone and running off to your parents' house. A wife who's not at home and doesn't do housework is useless. And now you come back and cause a police commotion. What a splendid wife indeed." No matter how much everyone around tried to explain that I wasn't at fault, it didn't seem to get through to my mother-in-law at all. I managed to gather my thoughts and began to wonder. Don't you care about the possibility of a burglary and the resulting damage? And isn't this your first time seeing your grandchild, Emma? Yet. You seem totally uninterested. Why is that? Everyone around me nodded in agreement with my words. Well, that's not the point. How dare a daughter-in-law, who doesn't even apologize, blame her mother-in-law like this? Mother-in-law dodged my question and continued to assert her point of view. Mom? What's going on? Interrupting the situation with a relaxed demeanor was my husband, John. John. Listen to this, it's terrible. Mother-in-law's face lit up like a fish in water upon the arrival of her beloved son. Kayla apparently called the police. Why? She's saying it might have been a burglary. That's nonsense. Tell her, John. Tell her not to do such senseless things. Well, hey, Kayla, could this burglary thing be a misunderstanding? Making such a big fuss is a nuisance to the neighbors. And it's not good. The police must be busy too, let's just ask them to leave. What? I felt dizzy, but for a different reason this time. It was one thing for my hostile mother-in-law to act this way, but for John, my husband, to say such things. Wait, John. The house is a mess. The police are still investigating, so we don't know if it's a burglary yet. But the way things are scattered is strange. We were just about to check for missing items and file a report. That's not acceptable. John raised his voice before I could finish explaining. Why? Unable to comprehend the situation, I started to cry in frustration. I came back to find no one at home, the room is a mess, not knowing what happened, I was scared. As I sobbed uncontrollably, a kind neighbor patted my back, and their warmth made me cry even more. Yet, mother-in-law and John only looked on with annoyance. Why don't you understand? My daughter, Emma, who had been sleeping, started crying too, and their faces grew even more displeased. In the end, I was again saved by the kindness of my neighbor and the concerned looks of the police officers and spent the night at the neighbor's house. Stolen items? I don't know. It's just Kayla making a fuss. Let's go inside. Yeah, Kayla, you need to cool off. Mother-in-law and John seemed unconcerned about the state of the house, even with items strewn everywhere. And quickly went inside after the police had finished their investigation. I thought he wasn't like this. Standing in front of the closed door, I remembered John's words. Mom always thinks I'm still a kid. It's so annoying. I just go along with her to avoid making waves, but it's a nuisance, he had said. However, I couldn't just stand there forever. Apologizing repeatedly, I ended up imposing on my neighbor for the night. Mommy's got to be strong. We'll get through this, Emma. I spoke to Emma, who had finally fallen asleep despite her fussing. The next day, when I went to my house, mother-in-law and John were there. Mother, did you sleep here? In this state. The living room was somewhat cleared for them to sit, but it was nearly the same as the day before. Yesterday, the police had checked the other rooms, and they were all in a similar state, with items thrown out of storage. Despite constantly criticizing my cleaning as inadequate, mother-in-law stayed overnight in the house in its chaotic state. And, without making any attempt to start cleaning, she just sat there sulkily, as if it was someone else's problem. Sleep here? Of course. Poor John was abandoned by his wife, so how could I leave? I couldn't hold back and responded. I didn't abandon you, you didn't take what I said seriously. Oh. What a way to talk. Mother-in-law's anger intensified. Then John chimed in. Seriously, making a fuss about a burglary? Have you cooled down? John said this in an annoyed tone, and something inside me just snapped. Yeah, right. It's not a burglary. I was surprised at how low and calm my voice was, but John didn't react to the anger in my voice. Instead, he smirked slightly. Ah, finally got it? Yeah, making a big deal about a burglary is just too much. Anyway, you should start cleaning up. John said this as if it were none of his business, and mother-in-law, too, lifted her chin triumphantly. Housework and childcare are the wife's job, right? Mother-in-law was using a disgustingly sweet tone, like talking to a beloved pet. Clean up? Why should I? You two made the mess, so you should be the ones to deal with it. I shrugged my shoulders in resignation, facing the two who were looking down on me. What? What did you say? As expected, they didn't like my response. Such a wicked daughter-in-law. Stop your backtalk and start moving already. Mother-in-law said this, breathing heavily with anger. So annoying. John frowned. Right in front of them, I said. I want a divorce. Huh? John was dumbfounded, his eyes darting back and forth. That's right, a divorce. Right now. Then mother-in-law dramatically lamented, holding John's head and sobbing, my poor baby, subjected to such horrible treatment. How pitiful. My dear John. What a big baby. I couldn't help but let out my true feelings, even though I tried to hold back. What did you say? Kayla, you. Both of them looked like their hair might stand on end from anger. Of course. They wouldn't stay silent after being talked down to by me. But I wasn't planning on backing down either. Didn't you hear me? Or can't you understand? Divorce, divorce. I knew it wasn't the right thing to do, to stoop to their level, but by then, I didn't care anymore. Enough with your nonsense. Apologize. Get on your knees. Angry, they pushed me down, pinning me to the floor. Apologize. John's grip was so tight it brought tears to my eyes. Just then. Kayla. Get your hands off my daughter. My parents came to my rescue, having rushed over to help. Behind them, I saw the kind police officer from yesterday. Coughing and relieved, I let out a sigh. What are you doing here, barging in like that? Leave immediately. Mother-in-law and John struggled as the police restrained them. It's no use. You're being detained for assault. I stood up with my father's help and smiled at the struggling two. Actually, we only came to follow up on yesterday's incident. I never expected it to turn into an assault. What do you mean? John was aggressive, but I wasn't scared anymore. The house is equipped with a baby monitor camera that I had set up for Emma. It's a live camera. So it didn't record the person who trashed the room. I said, and both of them visibly relaxed. Huh? What's that got to do with anything? I told you, it's a live camera. Right now, the kind neighbor who helped me yesterday is watching this room. And they witnessed your conversation yesterday with a group of people at the police station. I even gave the address to my parents so they could watch too. You see, after mother-in-law and John disappeared behind the door yesterday, I started checking the baby monitor. The police suggested this burglary incident seemed suspicious, possibly a setup. They suspected not only my mother-in-law but also my husband. Unfortunately, they were spot on. Before I came back, you two deliberately trashed the room and then left, planning to come back and blame it on me, right? You wanted to say. Such an unbelievable wife doesn't deserve to be in our family. You plan to extract an apology payment from my parents. The reason? Because Emma wasn't a boy and therefore not needed. You were all set to get rid of your unnecessary wife and find a new one. With your mother-in-law's approval of your affair, right? I said it all in one breath. Then, everyone except mother-in-law and John looked at them with cold eyes. Maybe there's some mistake. Yeah, right. Exactly, I would never cheat. Yeah, right. Kayla. Do you have more to add to this useless conversation? Wait. For a moment, mother-in-law, forgetting her position, started to retort but realized that the eyes around her were unforgiving. I refuse to be a part of this. I don't want to be told I'm needed or not needed for such unreasonable reasons. Since I arrived today, none of you have asked about the baby. Relatives who show no concern for their own family member? I don't need them. The neighbor caring for Emma has shown her more love than you ever did, which is not normal. I'm going back to my parents' home. And of course, I'll be getting a divorce and won't give up custody. Looks like you got what you wanted. No, wait. The police station? I don't want to go. Let me go. I don't want this. They both caused a commotion as they were taken away by the police. Afterwards, my mother-in-law and husband became quite notorious in the neighborhood. Of course, it was for all the wrong reasons. They even gave me a settlement for the divorce, trying to fix their image, but no good rumors spread at all. After all, it makes sense. No matter how much they loudly claim they did me a favor, nobody would believe them. I returned to my parents' home and am raising my daughter with them. I even found a job through an acquaintance. Sure, it's not without its challenges and anxieties, but when I see my daughter's face, I'm motivated to keep going. I'm determined to make sure Emma grows up straight and true, nothing like John. My name is Emily. I am a 33-year-old housewife. It's been a year since we got married, but we still don't have any children. My husband, John, loves children, and from the beginning of our marriage, he was enthusiastic about having children as soon as possible. However, the storks never come. Losing patience, John suggested, maybe you should get checked out at the hospital once. So, I went to see an OB/GYN. After undergoing numerous tests, I was relieved when the doctor told me, there's nothing wrong with you. But then, out of the blue, John declared, I'm sorry. I want a divorce. Why? There's nothing wrong with my body. I really want kids soon. Staying with Emily, I can't stand the uncertainty of not knowing when that'll happen. I was speechless. We've only been married for a year, haven't we? Since it's proven I can conceive, couldn't you have waited a bit longer? But, Emily, you're already 33. You'll be an old lady by the time we wait, or maybe you already are. I want to give my kids a young and beautiful mom. To give. What could that possibly mean? Was he thinking of his wife as some object? It pierced deep into my heart. But I loved John. I desperately tried to persuade him to reconsider divorce, but I couldn't change his mind, and we separated after just 1 year. I was so devastated that I couldn't think of anything else, but as time passed, I began to see John's true nature. He didn't love me as much as I thought. Perhaps he only saw me as a tool for having children. It turned into conviction 2 years later. I heard from my friend Samantha that John had ended up in a shotgun wedding with his new girlfriend. Samantha, a close friend since our school days, happened to work at the same company as John by coincidence. So, she was a mutual friend of John and me. Her straightforward personality made her popular among both men and women. John, relying on that, seemed to consult her about anything. John's current wife was involved with him even while you were married, it seems. What? Does that mean he was cheating? Yes, he blamed the inability to have children on Emily and was conveniently playing around with another woman. Samantha slammed her coffee cup down roughly and looked at me. Emily, you shouldn't be sad over such a guy. Find someone new. Encouraged by her, I finally managed to move on. And a year later, I too got remarried. After the divorce, I had been working part-time at a call center, where I met Michael, who was 2 years my senior, and we started dating. He proposed after we had been dating for 6 months. I'm so happy, but, still. Am I not good enough? It's not like that. I might have difficulty conceiving. What do you mean? After I explained in detail about my divorce from my ex-husband, Michael laughed it off, saying, "Is that all? The doctor said there's nothing wrong with you, right? Besides, conception is something a couple should face together. You shouldn't think it's all your responsibility." Hearing that, tears spilled from my eyes. Even if, just if, we can't have children, then we'll just walk through life together, just the two of us. The warmth of Michael's embrace, saying that, is something I'll never forget for the rest of my life. I was truly happy in my remarriage. Michael was good at housework and took care of himself in every way. Living alone for so long did that, but thanks to that, I met Emily, so I'm grateful to God, he said with an embarrassed smile. He was also a great cook, treating me to authentic Italian cuisine. John wouldn't even take out the trash, and having thought all men were like that, everything about Michael was a surprise to me. I must have been truly fulfilled. Then, one day, 6 months into our marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. During a routine checkup at the OBGYN, I was told, "Congratulations." In disbelief, I returned home and shared the news with Michael, who had just come back from work. "Seriously? Way to go, Emily." I was shocked when he suddenly grabbed me by the waist and lifted me up. "Hey, cut it out, Michael. Sorry. We wouldn't want to startle the baby." He hurriedly put me down and gently stroked my belly. "I'm so glad you're happy." "Of course. It's our child, after all." Seeing Michael's eyes well up made me feel like crying too. "It's all thanks to you, Michael. Being with you, I've always felt so at peace. I think that's why I was able to get pregnant. Take care of yourself, okay? Don't push yourself too hard." "Yes, I understand." The following 10 months were like a dream. With hardly any morning sickness, and once I entered the stable period, going shopping with Michael and picking out baby items was truly fun. Then, as the due date approached with just a week to go, my phone rang. It was from John. I hesitated but then pressed the call button. "Hello? Hey, Emily? It's me. Long time no speak. I heard from Samantha that you're pregnant, is that true?" "Yes, it is." "Why?" "I just thought, you couldn't get pregnant." I was at a loss for words at his remark at such a time. "Maybe I should have been a bit more patient," John said, making a tasteless joke. "I didn't need your patience. By the way, how's your new wife doing?" "Oh, come on, what are you talking about?" He dodged the question. "Well, either way, it's none of my business anymore. Bye." I hung up with a sharp tone. Wondering about the purpose of the call, I told Michael about it when he got back from work. It's not like we divorced out of hatred, but it's upsetting to get a call out of the blue like that. Maybe he had a fight with his current wife? Wanted to vent? It didn't seem like that. He even made a rude comment about how he should have been a bit more patient. Maybe he wanted to celebrate your pregnancy? No way, Michael, you're too kind-hearted. Michael, chuckling, is truly a kind person. Being with such a kind Michael made me feel silly for being angry, so we switched the topic to the baby. "It's a girl. The doctor told us at the last checkup." We discussed names for her again that day. Michael's eyes sparkled with joy. "Can't wait to meet her. Very soon." Exactly a week later, our baby was born. We named her Amanda. Holding Amanda, Michael tearfully kept saying, thank you, to me over and over again. After being discharged, I started my days of struggling with childcare. Of course, Michael helps, but we both keep making mistakes since it's all new to us. If only we had grandparents to rely on at times like this. Can't help it. Our parents live far away. Maybe you should have gone back to your hometown. It's okay. No matter how tough it gets, I want to be here with you and Amanda. Even though there were many sleepless nights due to the baby's crying, just looking at Amanda's face was healing. 3 months passed, and by the time we started mixing formula with breastfeeding, we finally began to sleep more peacefully. One day, Samantha came over with a gift to celebrate the birth. Wow, so cute. Seeing Amanda asleep in the crib, Samantha exclaimed softly. Congratulations, Emily, truly. Thank you. I'm so glad you came. I wanted to come sooner, but sorry, okay? What are you talking about? I'm just happy you could make it, knowing how busy you are with work. We sat down facing each other with the cake and coffee Samantha brought as gifts. As we got excited talking about Amanda and brewed a second cup of coffee, Samantha said, "You know, I was hesitant to bring this up, especially when you're at the peak of happiness, Emily, but will you listen?" "What is it?" "You're being so formal." "Well, it's about John. You know he had a child with his current wife right away, right? So? He used to think the infertility issue was on your end. Of course, he would. But he changed his tune when he found out you were pregnant. Started wondering if the problem was with him after all. I was more puzzled by John's health than anything, thinking, why now? John has a child, doesn't he? What's the issue then? That idiot. He's been accusing his wife, saying, it's not my child. Whose seed did you take? Samantha was utterly dumbfounded. What? That's too much of a leap, even for him. I thought he was a real fool when he came to me with that. So, John was seriously troubled by this? Seems like it. Still, Samantha appeared to have consoled him. And guess what he said? Can't change a slut's ways. Can't trust anyone. Who's he to talk? It's astonishing how he can say such things without reflecting on himself. Both Samantha and I were beyond exasperated. His wife was furious. They had a huge fight, and she went back to her parents' house. As she should. He came whining to me, what should I do? But I yelled back, how should I know? Imagining John being scolded by Samantha made me laugh again. Anyway, that's the mess John's in. I'm worried he might say something unnecessary to you, Emily. It's fine. He's no longer related to me. Yes, but he's not in his right mind these days. Seeing Samantha genuinely concerned, I thought about how kind she truly is. I'll block John's number. Good idea. I'll tell him not to contact you too. Just then, we heard Amanda's cries as she woke up from her nap. I stood up and picked her up. Can I hold her too? Samantha reached out her arms. As we both comforted Amanda, John's matter completely faded from my mind. A month passed, and I was busy with the hectic days of childcare. There had been no contact from John. But then, unexpectedly, John's wife came to visit with their child. She said she got our address from her mother-in-law. I had informed the in-laws of our whereabouts just in case. John's wife, who introduced herself as Judy, seemed to be in her 20s, with large, expressive eyes, giving her a cute appearance. Bob, who is nearly 2 years old, looks just like Judy. We sat facing each other on the sofa. Bob was enthusiastically entertaining my daughter, who was lying down. I'm sorry for coming out of the blue. I just really needed to apologize to you, Emily, Judy started. Apologize? Yes. I didn't know John was married when we started dating. I felt truly sorry about everything that happened. I was honestly baffled as she apologized. The truth is, I'm troubled by this late apology, was what I really felt. Did you come all this way just to say that? No, it's just that, we've decided to get a divorce. What? With John? Yes. I know it's none of your business, but I just had to talk to someone about it, so I came here. Judy began to pour out her story like a floodgate had opened. Her story was one shock after another. He kept berating me, insisting the child wasn't his. Then I'll show you proof, I said, and we got a DNA test to prove the parentage with John. So, the problem was resolved, right? It's not that simple. You're still dirty, I only married you because you could bear children, he would say whatever he wanted. But as soon as the test results came back, he flipped, saying, oh, great, great. Now we can ease ourselves and have a second one. How could I forgive that? Judy was furious. Sure, I might have been the other woman, but John was the one who deceived me. Judy slammed the table hard. Hey, calm down. You'll scare the kids. I'm sorry. She seemed to come back to her senses and lowered her head. So, you decided to get a divorce? Yes. He sees his wife as nothing more than a tool for making children. It doesn't matter to him who it is. I understood that feeling all too well. Because I felt the same. If you ask me if I hate the woman before me, maybe I do. But at least the children are innocent. Looking at the kids playing happily, I couldn't help but feel sorry for them. Fortunately, John's parents are on my side. They're so fed up with his stupidity that they've banned him from their home. His parents are good people. Right? How could such wonderful parents have such a scumbag for a son? We ended up laughing as we looked at each other. John's been lamenting about wanting custody, but of course, I won't give it to him. If he makes more trouble. His parents told me to hire a lawyer. So, what will you do now, Judy? I'll go back to my parents' house and look for a job. Good luck. Thank you. I thought you, Emily, of all people, would understand how I feel. And I was worried that idiot might start trouble with you again. Please be careful. Feeling an odd sense of solidarity, I no longer felt like blaming Judy. Both of us lacked judgment in men. Not at all. Look at you, Emily, you've found such a wonderful husband now. There's still plenty of hope for you, Judy. With a big smile, Judy left. We might never meet again, but I sincerely wished her happiness. I heard from Samantha about a month later that John and Judy's divorce was finalized. I've changed my phone, so I haven't heard from John. But it seems John is still telling people around him that the reason for our divorce was my fault. What a pathetic man. It would have been fine if you had just gotten pregnant sooner, he's still saying that. On the other end of the phone, Samantha was fuming with anger. I was so pissed off that I decided to give him a piece of my mind in front of everyone. What did you do? I decided to send him on secondment to a subsidiary. Samantha is John's boss. She, being highly capable, had climbed her way up to being the department head in John's division. Isn't that an abuse of power? A woman's enemy is the enemy of society. As I listened to Samantha laugh, I murmured, "Tough luck, John. There's nothing wrong with wanting children. But men who only see women as tools for childbearing don't deserve to thrive in this world." Pitiful John, strictly dealt with by both his wife and boss, seems to continue his misogyny unabated. Even in his demoted position, he's making advances on women and getting what he deserves. Fools never learn unless they face the consequences. Maybe I should ask the King of Hell to snip off that part of him. Then never come back. Sign the divorce papers before you leave. Faced with my desire to return to my parents' home, my husband hurled insults at me. Happily, I signed the divorce papers and finalized the divorce that very day. I wanted to get away from my husband that badly. After filing for divorce, I reunited with my father at my parents' home. I told him about the process of my divorce. My father listened calmly without showing any anger. Then, making a phone call, he stood up and said, "Let's go." I stood up and followed him, getting into the car. Together with my father, I went to take revenge on my ex-husband. My name is Ashley. I am a 51-year-old homemaker. I met my husband Mike during our college days, and we got married. Now, he has climbed the corporate ladder and works at a trading company, soon to be promoted to executive vice president. Our married life was never smooth sailing. Well, maybe it was for Mike. But for me, it was like living in hell. Because every day was a struggle. Mike was a man of bravado at home but had a really good public image. He was constantly praised as the ideal husband by everyone around. No one seemed to believe the true nature of Mike. It's understandable. Who would think that a person with such a respectable title could be abusive? Even I, before our marriage, didn't notice it. It was impossible for a stranger to see through him. Mike became arrogant at home, and his true nature began to show after our marriage. While we were dating, he was genuinely kind, patiently teaching me things, even when I was incompetent. He was such a considerate person. But after marriage, he became a completely different person. Taking advantage of our marriage, he started treating me as his property. "Hey, what's this awful meal?" "I'm sorry. I thought I had the taste right." "Don't make excuses. Just expressing a slight opinion made Mike yell and intimidate me by making loud noises. After a while, I became scared to even voice my opinion to him. If I don't fight back, it'll be fine. I convinced myself and became completely submissive to Mike. I used to have friends, so I tried contacting them for advice. But Mike found out and shut down all communication with them. Mike contacted my friends and managed to cut off my SOS calls by skillfully dodging the issue. No one but me would bother with someone as incompetent as you. Just quietly do as I say. That's how I ended up being confined in a home that felt like a prison. Any attempt to act was immediately thwarted, and I couldn't seek help from neighbors, let alone friends. Whenever I tried, I was threatened, do you understand? Who do you think you are living off? If you leave me, how will you survive? Having no one to turn to? But even with those words, I had no way to respond. Mike was right, I had no one to rely on. My mother had passed away, and my father was alive but not someone I could easily turn to. To be precise, I didn't even know where my father was. When I was young, he left my mother and me and went away. I lacked the financial means to live on my own and had no one to rely on. Eventually, I started to think that maybe escaping this situation was impossible. That's the thought that began to consume me. But then, an incident pushed me to my limits. Mike took out his frustration on me after losing in gambling. This unreasonable behavior finally brought me to my breaking point, and I decided to tell him I wanted to go back to my parents' house, where my late mother had lived. Please, I just want to go back for a little while. I just want to pay respects at my mother's grave. Honestly, I just wanted to get away from Mike for a bit. But I couldn't tell him that truthfully. It's not that I didn't want to pay respects to my mother, but more than anything, I wanted to get out of that house. That was my sole focus. No way. Why would you want to visit someone who's already gone? She's not even there. Stop with this superstitious thinking. There's no need for you to go, Mike said, not even looking at me while reading his financial newspaper. His response left me speechless. He didn't even treat me like a person anymore. I began to think that perhaps it was impossible to continue with him. That was my realization. Then, something snapped inside me. Understood. I replied coldly to Mike's statement, which seemed to irritate him. He frowned and turned his gaze from the newspaper to me. What was that tone? Do you think it's okay to speak to me like that? I don't care. I no longer think of you as a person. What did you say? At that point, I didn't care what he did to me. Whatever happened to me didn't matter anymore. If it meant I could go to my mother, that was fine. I must have been prepared to end everything. That's why, with newfound courage, I faced Mike's menacing approach without flinching and stared him down. Inside, I was terrified. It was almost my first act of defiance. It's natural to instinctively fear someone whose actions are unpredictable. But I wouldn't lose. I was determined never to be under Mike's control again. I will be going back to my parents' house. I met Mike's glaring eyes without looking away, maintaining a straight and steady gaze. I acted bravely, determined not to let him see my fear. Mike was infuriated. He slammed the financial newspaper on the table and pulled out a sheet of paper from a shelf containing his work documents. Then never come back. Sign the divorce papers before you leave. He shouted, revealing his anger, and thrust the divorce papers at me. He probably thought I would panic. But that was far from the case. In fact, it was a moment of joy. I was so happy inside that I almost jumped for joy. But I couldn't let him realize that. This was the moment I had longed for. Finally, I would be free. Keeping a poker face, I simply said, understood. Then, taking the divorce papers, I immediately signed them and insisted that Mike sign as well. Mike was taken aback by this turn of events, visibly unsettled. He probably thought I would desperately cling to him and beg if he handed me the divorce papers. But that didn't happen. It was the turn of events I had been waiting for. There was no way I would regret this choice. I was jubilant. Thus, our marriage came to an end, and the divorce was finalized that day. Immediately after the divorce papers were processed, I flew back to my parents' home. The house, which had become desolate since my mother's passing, was dusty and in a state too harsh for living. It's going to be hard to get this place in order today. I sighed, standing in front of the house, when suddenly I heard the sound of luggage dropping behind me. Oh, are you alive? Turning around, I saw a gentleman in a white-haired suit standing there. I recognized the figure and began to dig through my memories. But the old man, unconcerned with my confusion, hugged me and wept, saying he had missed me. I'm so glad. I received news of your death and couldn't stay put. I finally found you. I've always wanted to see you. I'm truly sorry for not being there for you back then. The old man, crying and continuously apologizing while mistaking me for someone else. The strength of his embrace was strong, as if he was confirming my very existence. And with his warmth, memories from my childhood resurfaced. Could it be? Dad? My statement must have surprised him. The old man jerked slightly and slowly pulled away from me. Then, with tears still on his cheeks, he stared intently at my face. Could it be, are you Ashley? The old man muttered, looking over my face and body, as if confirming his thoughts. I didn't remember his voice or face, but the sensation of his embrace and his scent. Instinctively, I realized he was my real father, Brian. It is you. Dad, I've always wanted to see you. The moment I recognized him as my real father, I hugged him again. I had only known his name all this time, not knowing his whereabouts. My mother had firmly refused to tell me his surname, making it impossible to find any clues about my father. Ashley. I'm glad you're well. My father, who realized I wasn't my mother, was momentarily unsettled but then embraced me back, accepting me. Somewhat. I'm relieved to see you looking well, too, Dad. I'm sorry. I left you and your mother, and I. During the war, my father, the heir to a wealthy family, had eloped with my mother and raised me. They had managed to escape to a remote countryside unknown to anyone, but my father, due to his status, was eventually taken back home by my grandparents before I was old enough to remember. Mom always cared about you, Dad. Really? When I was young, I once asked my mother, Mom, don't you hate Dad? Why would you say that? Because he left you and went away. Leaving Mom behind, that's sad. As I spoke, puffing my cheeks, my mother gently stroked my head and smiled. Ashley, I'm not alone. What do you mean? Dad gave me you, didn't he? It's not Dad's fault. If there's someone to blame, maybe it's the times. While looking at the garden from the porch, my mother smiled sadly. If it were nowadays, we might still be together. That's what I believe. So, Ashley, if I can meet Dad in the next life, I want to be with him properly as husband and wife. My mother smiled shyly as she said this. Even as a child, I was touched by how deeply my mother loved my father and still thought of only him. When I told my father this, he collapsed on the spot, rubbing his head on the ground and crying. Me too. I've always wanted to see you again. Dad. I gently patted his back until he finished crying. After crying until his tears and voice dried up, my father raised his head and smiled with swollen eyes. I'm sorry for showing such a pathetic sight at our long-awaited reunion. Don't worry about it. Seeing you here and Mom not showing up, she's passed away, hasn't she? My father regained his composure and surmised the situation about my mother, murmuring as if realizing something. I nodded slightly and led my father to the family altar, where we paid respects to my mother for the first time in a long time. Finally, I've come to see you. I'm back. As I prayed in front of the altar, I felt as if my mother was smiling and welcoming me back. I just felt it. As my father and I were catching up, he noticed the ring on the ring finger of my left hand. By the way, have you gotten married? I had almost forgotten about the symbol of love with Mike. The ring, which now felt more like handcuffs, made me feel disgusted, and I took it off in front of my father while answering. I was, but I just got divorced. Divorce? Did something happen? My father asked, looking worried. I hesitated, wondering if I should tell him the truth. There was no guarantee that he would believe me. He might even take Mike's side and suggest I go back and try to mend the marriage. As these anxieties swirled inside me, my father seemed to sense them. He placed his hand on my head, as if to dispel my fears, and gently stroked it. I couldn't do much for your mother, but from now on, I want to protect you. I might be an unreliable father, but can you talk to me? I'm on your side. His warmth and kind words made tears naturally roll down my cheeks. I had no memory of such gentle words during my marriage. It's okay to lean on someone for support. Feeling as though my mother was also pushing me to rely on someone, I decided to tell my father everything about the treatment I had received from Mike. After I finished my story, my father remained silent for a while, not saying anything. Had I made a mistake by speaking up? Regretting my decision and feeling anxious, I was lost in my thoughts. Seeing me like this, my father suddenly stood up, perhaps driven by some thought. Ashley, follow me. Where are we going? Just come. Wait. Without further explanation, my father called for a ride and we both got into the taxi. I had no idea where he was taking me, but he was on the phone with someone. Hello? It's been a while. I need to talk to you about your son. I'm coming home now, can you come over? Thanks. It seemed he had invited someone to his house, but who could it be? My question was soon answered. Long time no see, Jack. It's good to see you too, Brian. And you as well, Ashley. Jack. To my surprise, my father-in-law appeared at my father's house. Why was he here? Did my father and father-in-law know each other? Confused, I watched as my father laughed awkwardly. Sorry, I was a bit irritated after hearing the story and didn't explain the situation properly. Actually, Brian and I are drinking buddies. We met through a mutual friend. I knew he had a daughter, but I never imagined it was Ashley. Both my jovial father-in-law and gentlemanly father laughed heartily. I never imagined these two very different men could be such good friends. Who could have predicted this turn of events? I stared at them in disbelief. Noticing my look, my father cleared his throat. I called Jack here because I wanted to talk about your ex-husband, his son. Something about Mike? What happened, Ashley? Clearly, my father-in-law was unaware of the situation. My father-in-law's eyes sparkled with curiosity as he looked at me, seemingly puzzled. It was difficult to tell him about the divorce, as both he and my mother-in-law were very kind people. But with the support of my father and late mother, I gathered my courage and told them everything. My father-in-law listened quietly until I finished, but then his expression darkened with anger. Did my son really do such things? He asked fiercely, and I stepped back a bit, nodding firmly. Hearing this, my father-in-law looked at my father, seeking confirmation. As my father nodded slowly, my father-in-law's face reddened with anger. Why didn't you consult us sooner? My father-in-law raised his voice in anger. Seeing this, I felt a pang in my heart, wondering if he didn't believe me, but the words he spoke next left me frozen. If you had. I cautiously looked at my father-in-law, wondering if I had misunderstood his words. His face showed a mix of anger and guilt, and he looked at me with concern. Did we seem so unreliable to you? Did you think we would favor our son? I was honestly taken aback by his words. Was he really choosing to believe me, a virtual stranger, over his own son? Wouldn't anyone naturally favor their own child? Why would he do otherwise? My face must have shown my doubts. My father-in-law, looking downcast, spoke to me soothingly. Ever since the day Ashley joined our family as a bride, my wife and I have treated you as our daughter. There's no way we would be biased towards our son. Rely on us more. He placed his hand on my shoulder and looked at me kindly. In that moment, I realized that my father-in-law and father were truly listening to me, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I was overwhelmed with relief and a sense of guilt for not speaking up earlier. I should have spoken up sooner. I should have sought help. I shouldn't have given up. I should have voiced my opinions. Realizing the importance of expressing oneself, I managed to calm down and thanked my father-in-law. Watching me, my father patted my back, and my father-in-law continued to offer comforting words. I thanked my father-in-law again, now more composed. He chuckled modestly, saying, "Oh, stop it," and the three of us were enveloped in a warm atmosphere. Well, shall we give that foolish son of mine a piece of our mind? A piece of mind? Yes. After what he's done to Ashley, he needs to apologize properly, or I won't be satisfied. And so, we decided to confront Mike. However, I didn't want any more direct involvement with him. I didn't even want to call him. Seeing this, my father spoke up, asking my father-in-law to make the call. I'll summon him here. I can't just do nothing as Ashley's father after what she's been through. I'll speak calmly, so don't worry. As if reading my mind and alleviating my concerns, my father smiled kindly at me. Jack, could you please call Mike? As soon as my father made this request, my father-in-law immediately called Mike and handed the phone to my father. Hello, nice to meet you. Ashley has always been under your care. Mike must have been suspicious, suddenly speaking to a stranger. From the other end of the phone, a doubtful voice came. Who are you? I need to talk to you about Ashley. Please come to my house immediately. Huh? Why should I bother going to some stranger's house? Even though the phone wasn't on speaker, his voice was loud. He was practically shouting. What a way to speak to someone he's never met. Mike's rudeness disgusted me. Just come. Understood? I was a little surprised. My father, usually gentle, was speaking in a firm and stern tone, unusual for him. Mike must have sensed it, too. From the other end of the phone, I could sense his hesitation. My father simply said that one sentence, then abruptly ended the call and handed the mobile phone back to my father-in-law. Shortly after, my mobile phone was bombarded with frantic calls from Mike. You don't need to answer it. We're going to see him soon anyway. Just ignore it. My father instructed, and I obediently turned off my phone. Mike probably didn't have the courage to call back after the earlier conversation. He would prefer to confront me directly, where he could be more assertive. Such tactics were typical of Mike. Understanding his thought process, I sighed in disdain, thinking how pathetic he was. After a while, Mike arrived at my father's house. Presumably, my father-in-law had sent him the location. He barged in, complaining as soon as he entered. What the heck is this all about? Why did you call me to this place? And who was that old man on the phone? Mike burst in, shouting from the moment he entered. His voice was so loud it seemed to echo in my ears, making me wince, but he didn't seem to care. Upon seeing me, he raised his voice even more. Ashley. Why didn't you answer my calls? I called you so many times, and you just hung up. Do you think you can do that to me? My father stepped in front of me protectively as Mike looked like he was about to explode his anger. What's with you, old man? Move, you're in the way. I won't move. Stop speaking to Ashley like that. Huh? It's none of your business. Don't meddle in family matters. Mike responded with an irritated tone, clicking his tongue. His attitude brought back all my traumatic memories, and I began to tremble in fear. Trying not to show my fear, I hugged myself, but my father-in-law reassured me with a gentle touch on my back. His support helped me regain some composure, and I watched my father confront Mike without flinching. Nice to meet you. I'm Ashley's father. Huh? Father? Ashley doesn't have a dad. Mike looked at my father with suspicion rather than surprise. He had assumed my father was dead since I never talked about him. His dismissive attitude made my anger rise. I am indeed her father. Would you like me to bring a family register to prove it? A quick check will confirm that Ashley is my daughter. Fine. So what was the phone call? What do I have to apologize for? My father, standing firm and unafraid to confront Mike, seemed so strong and reliable. I felt reassured by his presence. What's with your attitude, young man? Don't you have something to say to me? My father-in-law was seething with anger. My father-in-law frowned and glared at Mike, speaking with an intimidating tone. His presence emanating from his tall, imposing figure was so intense that, even though I wasn't the one being addressed, I felt like cowering. Huh, something I need to talk about. Mike looked completely scared, reeling back as if he had been confronted by a snake. What have you been doing to Ashley all this time? Nothing. I was just taking care of naive Ashley, that's all. Don't lie. Mike, in fact, was terrible at handling being scolded. People like him, who think they're always right, find it hard to be lectured by others. My father-in-law's incredulous response to Mike's absurd claim made him roar and almost shove Mike against the wall with his thunderous voice. Eek. Naive. You're the one who's utterly clueless about the real world, strutting around and bossing others. Shame on you. My father-in-law was venting all the frustration I had accumulated. Scared, Mike stumbled backwards and ended up falling onto a sofa behind him. Listen. Why do you think you're able to strut around at my company? Actually, Mike was working for my father-in-law's company. It appears that my father-in-law built the company from the ground up and Mike was treated as the successor. Your work is something any other employee could easily handle. I only promoted you to reduce Ashley's burden, thinking it would be harder for her if you didn't succeed. Shocked by the truth revealed by my father-in-law, I turned to Mike with a look of surprise. I was shocked to hear this, as Mike had always boasted to me that the company can't function without me. This was the reality. I couldn't believe I had married such a pitiful person. Watching Mike, it felt like he was shrinking before my eyes. Perhaps I was too lenient in keeping a deluded man like you in the company. Father, what are you talking about? You're fired, my father-in-law declared. Fired? Both Mike and I were shocked by this sudden announcement. At the sudden announcement of his firing, I thought it seemed like a drastic proposal. It turns out you've been embezzling company funds. I was just thinking I needed to discuss this with Ashley when all this happened. I have no obligation to overlook your foolish behavior any longer. One after another, Mike's misdeeds were being revealed. The revelation of Mike's misconduct left me in utter disbelief. Wait. I was wrong, Father. And Ashley. It was all my fault. I didn't appreciate what I had and was stubborn. Finally understanding the gravity of the situation, Mike clung to me, crying and begging for forgiveness in a pitiful state. As I looked down on him, I showed a faint, mocking smile. Could you please not address me so casually? Mike must have been surprised by my unusually cold tone. He froze completely, stopping in his tracks and just looking up at me. We are over. Could you please not address me so familiarly? I would prefer if you didn't touch me at all. Ashley, what are you saying? He must have been unable to believe my defiance. This was the first time I had reacted this way, after living in fear of Mike for so long. His shock at my response, like a pet dog being bitten back by its owner, was almost comical. Unable to contain myself, I let out a laugh. Oh, you didn't hear me? Shall I say it again? I leaned down next to a cowering Mike and whispered coldly in his ear. Just the sight of you disgusts me. Please disappear from my sight. As I let out all the resentment and bitterness of the past in that one statement, I walked away from Mike. As I left him, Mike's face drained of color, looking as if he was seeing a nightmare. The following events happened quickly. Mike, like an empty shell, was taken away by my father-in-law and thoroughly reprimanded upon returning home. My father and I were astounded by the self-inflicted misfortune that awaited Mike, considering it well-deserved. Thus, I successfully avenged myself against Mike and cut ties with him. I hired a lawyer to fight for a substantial alimony in the divorce settlement. I had actually documented all the emotional abuse I suffered in a diary and handed over the audio recordings I had made for such a moment. Mike approached the lawyer, asking to settle things directly with me, but I firmly refused. I never wanted to see his face again. I made this clear through the lawyer, ensuring I would not have to face him. According to the lawyer, it was very likely that I would win the court case, which allowed me to look forward to enjoying the rest of my life. My father-in-law fired Mike for embezzlement and cut all ties with him. Mike reportedly begged for forgiveness, but he was turned away right at the door. My father-in-law did not care to listen any longer. After that, I decided to live with my father. We continued to maintain a relationship with my father-in-law's family, now closer than during my marriage. At first, I was hesitant about living with my dad. I thought it might be strange to rely on my father since I'm already an adult. But then my father suggested, If you're okay with it, why don't you spend the rest of your life with me in your mother's house? Agreeing to this, my father and I traveled a lot to make up for the time we couldn't spend together before. We traveled not only domestic, but also abroad. We roamed all over the country. I wanted to show my mother, who loved traveling, various beautiful landscapes. So, I always carried her photo with me on our travels.